You'll know about barcodes, you'll know about scanning, you'll know about SKUs, you'll know about all of the inner workings of a warehouse on a small scale, even if it's in your bedroom. To have that knowledge before you go out and talk to a fulfillment center is valuable, because 6 months you're doing orders out of your bedroom, and it gets overwhelming. Well, congratulations. Now it's time to look for a fulfillment center, and now you know what to talk about and everything that's going on.
Welcome to the Winning With Shopify podcast. This is the podcast to help you scale your Shopify store into a money-making machine. This episode is brought to you by Shipsalot. Shipsalot is an e-commerce fulfillment company based in the U.S. that works with a limited number of high-volume Shopify brands. If you own a Shopify store and ship more than 500 orders per month, contact us via info@shipsalot.com for a free fulfillment assessment, which includes Shopify fulfillment troubleshooting, evaluating postage spend, and other important fulfillment pain points. Now, over to your host, Nick Truman.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Winning With Shopify podcast. For anyone that's not tuned in before, it's an absolute pleasure to have you joining us today, and specifically today, because today we are starting a brand new series. In today's series that we're kicking off now, we're going to be talking about fulfillment, we're going to be talking about back office, we're going to talk about warehousing, about how to get things delivered on time, etc, etc, etc. This might sound like a really dry topic, but it's one of those foundational pillars of your business that if you don't get this right, everything else is going to fall apart. Plus, talking to some very special guests I'll introduce in a moment, we're also going to unlock hopefully some secrets and opportunities to actually make more money through fulfillment. It doesn't just have to be an overhead and a cost. Joining me today are from our sponsors, Shipsalot. I've got both founders on. I'm going to introduce one by one. We've got Zach and we've also got Max as well. So I'm going to go to Zach first. Zach, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, or having us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. And we're going to start with you, Zach. Why don't you give us a quick background, or give a quick overview to your background, a little bit about you and how you got involved in Shipsalot when it first started.
Yeah, Shipsalot came to be out of necessity. Max and I were running a beef jerky online e-commerce business back at Ohio State when we were in college, and we were shipping beef jerky out of our dorm room.
Nice.
And then we were doing that really well, and we were really good at the shipping part of it. We later left school and purchased a warehouse in Warren, Ohio, and we still shipped beef jerky. So at that time, we were doing really well, but we were doing it so fast that we decided we should help others, and we came up with the Shipsalot name and ran with it, and started offering fulfillment services to our friends and family, and then it snowballed from there. So just been doing shipping for a long time.
Lovely stuff. Absolutely amazing. And Max, welcome to the show as well.
Hey, thanks for having me, and Zach. really love talking about e-commerce, so we're excited.
Lovely stuff. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you guys with us today. And what I'm going to do is, Max, I'm going to come back to you. And obviously, Zach's given us a little overview of how things began. Why don't you talk to us about the early days of Shipsalot? You know, what were some of the first things that you guys set out to achieve, some of the challenges you set out to solve, and how the business developed to where it is today?
Yeah, so when we were at Ohio State, like Zach said previously, we're selling beef jerky online to people that played video games. So MLG, anyone that's like playing online video games. That was our niche.
Nice.
And we grew it from there. We started selling a lot of beef jerky, and we ended up leaving school because we were just doing so much work. And we purchased a warehouse in Ohio where we started selling more beef jerky. And as we went down that path, we needed to fund the company a little more. So we branched out into doing fulfillment for our friends that had other e-commerce businesses. And then it kind of snowballed from there, like Zach was saying, more and more, where we had more customers. And we actually lived in that warehouse back in the day just to make ends meet. And it was a great experience. We had another business partner back then who helped us out with a ton of development stuff, and we just lived the entrepreneurship life. And we built the business that way. And then a year after living in the warehouse, we moved down to Memphis, Tennessee, to be closer to FedEx because their global hub is here. And we thought they did all the already did all the legwork in trying to figure out where the best place to be in the country is. And we're like, well, we're not going to need to do that work. Let's just go move our building right next to theirs, which is what we did. And that really led into being able to expand the business more and more, being more centralized, just being able to get clients that want to have faster shipping times. Ohio wasn't the greatest area. Memphis makes it a little bit better than that. So, and the weather, and we like
Nice.
the weather down here. So we do enjoy that. But that's like the high overview of really the progression of starting in college, building it up, getting into a warehouse, getting another warehouse, and now we're in our third warehouse. So it's come a long way, but it's been quite a journey.
Nice. And I guess one quick question on that, and this might be like a one-word answer. It might be a
Yeah.
really painful question. Third warehouse. How painful is it moving warehouses for somebody like you guys?
Yeah.
Oh my, yeah, it's the most painful thing in the world. Actually, if there's anything I don't want to do is to move a warehouse. The first one was a lot easier. There was a small amount of clients, and we could do it all in like a 54-foot container, a truck. The second one took like Zach and I running box trucks for like a month straight just to get these places
Whoa.
moved. And
Okay.
it was a lot. It was after we worked. We did a lot of driving late at night, and it was only the other warehouse was only like 2 miles away. Even 2 miles is a lot of driving when you have to move all your product into another warehouse. So that is actually like there's a lot of stories in that in itself because it's so difficult to do the move and keep fulfilling orders that we just put our heads down and got it done. But I don't know how you would move something like twice the size or anything like that. It'd be very hard. And I know people are doing it. I just know it's a big pain point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it leads on
Zach
nicely
can
actually. So
attest
that
to
one of the
that.
first things, one of the first things we're going to talk about really is advice for new brands. And I guess one of the big points off the back of that then is saying that actually if you make the right decision in the first place, then actually you shouldn't need to move. I'm not saying you guys didn't, but certainly for an e-commerce brand, if you start making the
Yeah.
right decisions of when to outsource, when to start using a fulfillment house, when to have your own warehouse, etc. So I guess the first question really to either of you guys is, what are some of the things people should focus on when they're starting out as a brand when it comes to fulfilling orders?
Yeah, I think starting out, we always get questions from people who are like, "Hey, I'm starting this brand. We're going to start shipping stuff, and we want to outsource the fulfillment." And usually, our original conversation is that you should start off doing it yourself. To be honest, because it gives you the know-how of how a fulfillment center would work when you get to that point. You'll know about barcodes, you'll know about scanning, you'll know about SKUs. You'll know about all of the inner workings of a warehouse on a small scale, even if it's in your bedroom, which we've done before when we started the jerky business. We weren't professionals at the time, but over time we got really good at it. But to have that knowledge before you go out and talk to a fulfillment center is valuable because you'll understand when they're talking about something that you will sound like will sound foreign to you, but once you do it a couple times out of, let's say, 6 months, you're doing orders out of your bedroom, and it gets overwhelming. Well, congratulations. Now it's time to look for a fulfillment center, and now you know who to talk, what to talk about, and everything that's going on. So super important in my mind to be able to do that.
And I think
Absolutely.
that just to add to this is that we do have clients that potential clients that'll ask us like just give them tips because we're not saying don't go out and seek a fulfillment center when you're young or when you're early in your business, but you should get the information from someone that's in the fulfillment industry to tell you how it works in a fulfillment center. Like we'll give you the background of the costs and things like that. You come and ask us, and just so that it works for you. If it doesn't work for our client, then it won't work for us long term. It needs to make sense on both sides. You have to have the margin to do it, and that's the biggest thing. And you have to understand the costs of outsourcing it because when you're doing it yourself, the costs seem like they're zero, but there really is a cost there. Add your hour, put your hours down and see what that comes out to be on paper because there is a cost of it associated with it. You can't just do it for free and think you're going to be able to do that forever because you can't really grow your business like that. You need to assume there's going to be employees you're going to have to pay at some point, even if they're your own or if you're outsourcing it. So you have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that's really interesting,
Yeah.
just talking about something you were saying, Zach, and you kind of emphasised this as well, Max, is I often talk about businesses, and certainly I work in marketing, so what we don't want to do is start investing more money in marketing if there are other problems in the company. And certainly in that chain of from a customer seeing an advert to making their 10th order, seeing the very first ad right the way through, and obviously there's lots of fulfillment going on in the process in the middle, you don't want to scale a problem. So I love what you were saying, Zach, about actually if you do it yourself initially, you can write the book, which then means if you do bring in outside support, you're telling them how to do it. And also means you can test things really quickly. So I guess a really interesting question as well, and it'd be interesting to see how you guys support this, is if you try to change something on a big mass level, say you've got 1,000 orders a day and you try to test one thing, that could be a nightmare. If you've got 2 or 3 orders a day, you can just test stuff because you're the one doing it. So I guess it's better to make some of those mistakes earlier on and learn about how to do good fulfillment, what to package in the products, how quickly to pick and pack them. Is there anything when we're picking and packing that we need to do that changes the customer experience? But there might be an easier way to do it, certainly with working with you guys. But I imagine that, if you've got 1,000 orders a day going out, testing something must be a nightmare because the volume's so high. You need to make such a high degree of change to then see if it works.
For sure. Definitely. I definitely agree that testing yourself does make it a little bit easier, though Zach and I would figure out how we could test it for our clients if they really want it. And we are always, client facing, but doing it yourself obviously saves you time and money, and understanding the nuances of packing an order up. If it's a shirt, pretty easy, but if you have a complicated process, then you'll understand that it does take more time and more effort.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I guess a really good question then, if we stick with the kind of brands starting out for a minute, we'll come back to the kind of scaling and the bigger operations in a little while. But if a brand's starting out, what's some of the software, the processes? How do you find the right space for it? I mean, we've all done it from our own garage at some point, haven't we? So, what's a good way to sort of start out with that?
I think the biggest thing that comes into play here is how many SKUs you have. So if you have one SKU, you pretty much can print labels off of Shopify. And you won't have to worry about anything because all of your product is the same. So you print labels, you put it, 2 or 1 or whatever. It's pretty simple. Once you go down the path of having more than one SKU, now you have to move into some sort of software that tells you what to pick, or you have to set it up so you know what to pick. Which someone might order SKU X and SKU Y, and you have to be able to pick it correctly. Those are probably the biggest thing is setting it up so that you can make sure it's efficient for the amount of SKUs you have. Now, if you have 1,000 SKUs, obviously you're going to need a full-blown WMS warehouse management software that tells you picking routes and all this kind of stuff. And that's really, it comes to outsourcing at that point. Most people don't start off with 1,000 SKUs, but you have to keep that in mind that it is probably one of the more complicated things. Even after you get to 10 SKUs, the combinations are a lot. So you just have to really keep that in mind. The customer doesn't care. They're going to buy X, Y, Z, and you have to know that you're picking X, Y, and Z. So there is complications there, but keeping that in mind is probably the biggest deal.
And then I think on the software side of things, there are a few different softwares that you can use starting out, just out of your apartment. Like Shipping Easy or Shippo, just a few little softwares that just download the orders and make it so you can print the labels really easily. Those ones we used out of our apartment at Ohio State, I'm sure they're probably about the same nowadays, but they do just make it so that you can print labels at discounted rates, out of your apartment. And that's really easy to do, but just if you have more than one SKU, like Zach's saying. And it does. The one thing there is barcodes help a lot. We use barcode scanners in our warehouse to, make sure that things are going as planned and you're picking the right things. But barcodes come into play when there's more than one SKU, or if you just have very similar products like apparel in many different sizes. So those things definitely help. And the software, Shopify has it all in their app store. Just you can look for shipping softwares and try a few. But mainly the ones that you're going to use out of your apartment are going to be pretty basic, but they get the job done. And then you'll understand how hard, when we were doing out of our apartment at Ohio State, we made mistakes. And we're paying attention. We're doing everything we possibly can. We're so detail oriented, and we still made mistakes. So until you have a barcode scanner and barcodes on everything, you will make mistakes. And there's no way around it. If I go into the warehouse today and I pick an order, I'm going to barcode scan. I'm going to barcode it I'm going to barcode scan it because I'll make a mistake if I just try to remember it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess one of the things you guys have both pointed out, which is good, is not just, I mean, you mentioned Zach, you can just kind of click a button, it prints a label straight out in your apartment, you send the product. But actually, the quicker you start to build a process and a system means you make less mistakes. And also then you're building a process and you're testing it going, does the barcode process work for me? Or actually, do I need something else that's a bit more heavy duty? And I remember when I was running my sort of sunglasses business, most people just bought one pair of sunglasses. That was nice and easy. But you'd get the occasional person that would order 3 or 4 and they'd send 1 or 2 of them back. So they wouldn't send all of them apart from one back, but they would order a few. But that then meant you had to get exactly the right combinations. Then we started offering different sizes of them. And it was like, okay, we now just need to label everything it was in a store cupboard in our office, but we need to label everything and we need to make sure those labels represent the SKUs on the site. So if they order 3 SKUs, it's clear it's like 1, 2, 3, and you know you've put them in the correct, the correct packaging. But also the other thing is all this stuff takes time when you're doing it manually, doesn't it? You have to like put it in a box, fold that box up, print the label off, put the label on, put a bit of tape on it so the box is now sealed, drop it at the local courier. But I think, as you say, knowing how that process works, you probably then, I guess you probably welcome an automated process or a fulfillment company to take it over even more once you've been through it yourself for like a year or two, getting things off the ground.
For sure, for sure. Knowing how it works,
Nice.
for sure. Knowing how it works is great. So,
and I guess a big question then is, at what point do you start to outsource? Like, is there a magic number? Is there a point where it's like, okay, we're now selling enough that we need to outsource? Is there a certain number of SKUs? Is there a certain trajectory where it's like, okay, now we can analyze, we've reached X complications, so now we need somebody else to take this over? Or is it volume of orders? What do you guys reckon?
I would really just say that it just depends on what you're selling. But once it starts to interrupt your actual business development or business like expansion, and you're becoming just a fulfillment center to do orders every day, and you dread it, then that's when you need to look to outsource it. I mean, really, once it interrupts your actual business of actually growing your business, and you're literally waking up and fulfilling orders all day, that's a good point to know that you're successful enough to start looking to outsource it. I believe that like you can get to that point. It makes you feel good in the beginning that you're shipping orders out and everything, but that task needs to be put onto somebody else so you can go back to growing your business. You want 100 orders and then now you want 1,000 orders. You have to be realistic that some of that has to be outsourced at some point.
I would say I think 500 orders a month would be like a low range. When you break that, you should probably look into outsourcing. I mean, it just depends though. Like if you want us to do one SKU and it's very, not really complex, then you can outsource it. You could outsource it sooner because it's really not that complex, and it's not like we're doing a ton of hands-on work for that. Because if you had 1,000 SKUs and you're only doing 500 orders a month, there's a lot more work that goes into that. So I think it really just depends on the amount of SKUs, your orders, and if you don't, and when you start dreading it, because you will start dreading it at some point. So you want to outsource it at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that you mentioned 500 orders a month. Don't worry, I'm not going to hold you to that figure, and I'm also not a client, so we're all good.
No,
yeah. But I guess one thing I'd add to that, and this is unfortunately as a podcast host, this is the thing I have to say on so it depends, doesn't it? Like almost every answer that anyone gives, you could start with depends. But I think with that, if like you guys were saying, is if you've got quite a simple offering, you could do it a lot earlier. Equally, if you've got a low volume of orders but high value, but they're actually bulky orders, you might decide to do fulfillment sooner. It's like, I don't want to be stocking sofas in my garden anymore.
That's why I like to use the pain point. I like to use the aspect of is it a pain? Is it a pain to you? If 10 orders is a pain to you, then 10 orders is a pain to you. You want to outsource it. If you can do 500, you can do 500. So it is subjective, to be honest. The biggest thing is that you see sales and that they're growing. Growing sales, that you're going to have more to ship. That's probably the biggest thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. And I guess with the growth as well, you can plan the trajectory, can't you? You can say if every month we're adding another 5% worth of sales and we're investing 3% more in marketing, we're getting more profitable. We know in 6 months we're going to need fulfillments, and now's the time we should probably start interviewing different options for us.
For sure.
And I also think there's one other scenario is if you do a pre-sale for like a Kickstarter or something like that.
True.
Before you go and we've done Kickstarter fulfillments and Indiegogo and stuff, but they somehow forget about the costs of doing fulfillment sometimes in the postage and all this stuff, and they try to collect that money later. But if they do that earlier, they're doing it if they're part of their process and they kind of build it into their product, or they tell people it's going to cost X about to ship, then they save themselves. And we would like to take on those types of clients, because if they already sold 5,000 of something, and it's usually like one or two SKUs, it's very, very, very easy for us to do, and it's easy for them to outsource. They probably don't have the 5,000 at their house, and now they really only need the space for 5,000 maybe for like one day. So you're not going to like go and hire a full team and do all this. So I just think that's one scenario where it could be done straight up front. You have a Kickstarter project, you sell 10,000 of something, you need to outsource it, you need it done in the next 24 hours, you can do it. Like, that's a path to go down.
Wow. And that is a scenario I hadn't thought about. And so many merchants we've spoken to on the podcast have started through Kickstarter. And might I add, just for our listeners as well, had a mix of experiences. It sounds great. And if we just take the ones that made it far enough to then come on the podcast one day and talk about how successful they are, one or two have then had, for example, products arrive that were just so bad. The product itself was badly manufactured. You've already taken everyone's money and you've used that money to pay for this. You're like, what do I do next? But yeah, I think that Kickstarter scenario is actually very interesting, because I guess the other thing as well for those brands is Kickstarter is what it says on the tin. It's to kickstart the business. So you're planning to have lots more orders coming in, and the bigger and more successful Kickstarter or Indiegogo or something is, or crowdfunder, the more successful those things are, the more chance there is they're going to have more customers, more fulfillment's going to need to happen. And I guess everything we just said about starting out initially, they're almost just sort of leapfrogging that, which means they now need to put their trust in a good fulfillment partner, because they've not done this yet, but they fully need it. There's no way they can do it themselves. If you sold 100,000 units of something and they arrived at your house or your apartment, you can't do it.
You need to think.
Impossible.
You really need to think. You need to think ahead. I think that's one thing. You really, especially for Kickstarter, you have to think ahead. You have to think day 50, even though you're on day one. But really, that's the goal.
Nice. And I guess a really big question then to ask you guys, that dispatching a product and getting it to someone's house or home or wherever it's sent to, getting it from from source to customer, it sounds simple and like it's obvious you want it to be shipped, and there's a couple of different options in terms of speed, but there are lots of different types of fulfillment, aren't there? This isn't just as simple as put your products in a warehouse, they get picked and packed and sent out. There's a lot of different options, aren't there? So why don't you guys talk us through some of the different options that, certainly for more starter brands or brands that are starting to scale up, what are some of the options they could be thinking about with fulfillment, or assessing, actually, we want to fulfill like that, not like this?
Yeah, totally. I would have to say it depends on what your product is. You sell a luxury bag, that's $500, and you're trying to skimp on the shipping to make it $5. That's just a suggestion. There would be, you're selling luxury. You better ship with like in a luxury as a way of doing it. Like FedEx 2-day or something like that. It has to align. I think my biggest thing is like people trying to figure that out, and you're like, just ship it with a reliable shipper for something that's $500. There's no reason to cut a corner here, and it comes all the way back down to just like the fulfillment of it. Does it go in a box because it's does it go in a box because of how it gets handled in the mail? Does it go in a poly bag? These are things to think about as it arrives to the door. One thing to keep in mind is none of these carriers are going to be gentle or nice with your product. They are going through conveyors. They're going through machines. The people are dropping them. It's there has to be some aspect to think about with the whole process of like after it leaves our warehouse and it goes into FedEx, UPS, USPS's hands. What happens? But there is stuff. There are the carrier that you choose and the options you give your customers. Like one thing to keep that I always suggest is like, okay, you have free shipping, but why not add a FedEx 2-day calculated rate at checkout? Some of your customers might want to pay extra to get it there in 2 days. Like I for sure would. I'm in this industry, but if I see at checkout that I can pay an extra $10 for UPS ground or FedEx 2-day over some sort of free option that since I'm in the industry, know might not make it to me in time, I'll upgrade to that. Why not? Why not offer that? Especially on luxury goods is one of the bigger things I always am like surprised doesn't have an option for me to select a different carrier that I would like. But you have to align with your customer really and give them the options they want and then provide what they are expecting basically. That's my 2 cents.
Nice.
Yep. And I think that And I was just to add to it, I think that there are, options that range from, 2 to 5 days, or 2 to 7 days, to all the way up to overnight. So just depends on what you want to offer. But there are, once they get, fulfilled by us, they're handed off to the carrier, and then it's in the carrier's hand, and then it gets delivered. But those in between options that the customer is offered, does depend on what you offer in your Shopify store. So you really just, like Zach said, align with your customers. If they're buying a luxury good and you can offer the overnight shipping, I'd put it on there and see if that sells. There's no reason not to, but there are a lot of different offerings in between of the order and then getting it to their doorstep.
Yeah, and something we've done recently actually with shipping, while we're talking about kind of free shipping, next day shipping, premium shipping, we've run some experiments with some of our clients, and this came from bear in mind we work in marketing, it came from a conversion rate optimization angle. So we wanted to increase the conversion rate on the site and also increase average order value. So with quite a few clients now, we've been testing putting a loading bar on the Shopify cart that says how close they are to free shipping. So we offer free shipping, but only when you've spent $100, so you get to free shipping. And then we realized that average order value now is above $100. Great, everyone's spending over $100 now, we've done that. To which then the client, of course, asked us, what's next? And we then sitting there thinking, what else could we do to get this higher? So we created a level 2. Level 2 now is a second bar that then starts in a different color. So you've got, and it says free shipping, tick with a big green tick. And there's a different bar which then goes from like blue to red or something. It's a bit more of an urgent color. Then says now if you get up to $200, you get free overnight shipping, or we call it next day in the UK. Next day shipping. So then you've got the second bar. And what we're working on at the moment is what's level 3 going to be, because we don't know. But it's got those options of like, it's going to cost you $4 extra if you want next day shipping. But if you spend $200, you get this. But what we've been doing is it's not just always 100, 200. We've been balancing those different things. We've been balancing these two different things to try and work out basically what is that point where like we're now the free shipping's too high that people just aren't bothered in getting that high. Same with the next day and working out those different jumps. But I think it's an interesting point though, isn't it, about what to offer for your customers? And you really good examples there of like the luxury goods versus the kind of cheap and cheerful stuff. And actually, is it going to reach me on time? And I guess with all the technology these days as well, I think there's no excuse, especially with Shopify, to offer some sort of estimated delivery date. And certainly on things like items of furniture where it's not going to be 2 or 3 days, it could be 2 or 3 weeks. I think putting that on products, it's been proven time and time again on product pages on Shopify that helps with conversion and setting expectation. It reduces customer service complaints. Just if you buy this, it's going to take 3 weeks to arrive. And obviously benchmark that against competitors and ask your customers, was 3 weeks okay, or actually did you need it to arrive quicker?
No, for sure.
For sure. Yeah. And I definitely agree. I agree with that. Definitely nice to have the checkout. That loading bar sounds a really good way of getting people to get more stuff in their cart. I definitely like that. Works well.
Nice.
I'll say back in the day, I was going to say one other thing. Back in the day when we ran the jerky company, we experimented with a bunch of different checkout options that were just like really just gimmicky. But we went from, this is random, like we'll deliver. We had like drone delivery on there for like $10,000.
Marketing.
It was just funny because people would like tweet about it, like, oh my god, Jerky XP. It was just marketing because like Jerky XP is offering drone delivery like $10,000. We're like, yeah, well, if someone pays $10,000, we'll go stand outside their house with a drone and put the product on it and drop it off at their door just for fun because
but it was all
so much less. But it actually it really was all marketing, and it did work. It was kind of funny for the industry that we were in because we knew about the customers that we had, and it was good marketing. But the ones that do work are like the overnight ones. You can definitely charge as much as you want because if someone wants something overnight, I guess they'll just pay for it. And if they do want it, just calculate it at checkout. So it is nice to offer those options.
Nice. And I guess a really big question then, and obviously the marketing, I think bringing marketing and fulfillment together is really important. And this question kind of feeds off that, is how do you choose the right fulfillment partner? Like, what are the questions you need to ask? Where do you need to look? How do you pin somebody down and go, right, you're good for our business? Because it's obviously quite dangerous to test a few, isn't it? We spoke earlier about warehouse moves. We don't want to keep changing fulfillment partner and moving stock from one location to another. It's just an added cost that delivers basically nothing. So how do you choose the right partner from a nice early stage?
Yeah,
take that one?
it's definitely super complicated. Back in the day when we started out, there were 10 different places on Google Now there are 10,000 different ones to look through. And as we stated in here about the hotel restaurant stuff, comparison hotel. If you want to go with your family and stay in a nice house and you have kids and stuff, you pick Airbnb. If you're on a business trip, you're gonna probably pick a hotel just because they each have their own uh, benefits that you would think. When you're looking through a fulfillment partner, every fulfillment
Yeah.
partner offers something different. This one might be doing wholesale orders. This one might be doing kitting. This one might be doing, just drops. This one might just be doing Kickstarter. So it's not so cut and dry. It is really like talking to multiple fulfillment centers, see what they offer, see who their client base really is, and catering to that. Yeah, making sure they cater to what you need, not just, oh, I'm just going to send it off to so and so and I hope they do it right. Not everyone, not everybody does the same thing. Everyone might have a broad spectrum of what they'll do just to get clients,
Yep.
but there is something that
Yeah.
they specifically do that you would want to make sure you align with. And I think that's the biggest thing. I'm not going to say that there's these 5 fulfillment centers that are the perfect fit. There's tons of them. It's really just making sure you question them to make sure that what you're selling and what you're trying to do fits with what they do on a daily basis. And that's really how we vet our clients is we talk to them, find out what they do. We're gonna be straightforward with them. If it's not a good fit, something we don't do, we will try to point them in the right direction. That's the biggest thing. Is just getting the right fit is most important here, not just blindly picking because of reviews or something else. You got to look through and do your due diligence.
Yes, for sure. I think Zach's nailed it all there. But also adding to it, if you are a e-com brand and you're trying to find a fulfillment center, don't lie to them about what you need done. Just tell them what you need done so that they're not caught off guard when they have
Very
to
true.
actually fulfill the orders.
Yeah.
Like if you say I only have
Yeah.
2 SKUs and I am going to ship 500 orders a month, don't come in there and say I do 1 SKU and I ship 10,000 orders a month. It's not going to be, you're going to be on the losing end of that because they're going to do a lot of work and they're going to charge you for it because they're doing the work. So you really want to disclose what you're going to do and what your ideas are for the future, just to make sure that they can grow with you. If someone wants a bunch of wholesale stuff and they start off with just e-com orders and then they switch over to wholesale, it might not be a good fit for some fulfillment centers. So just be honest up front. And we're really honest with the clients that we want to bring on, and we just tell them, yeah, it's a good fit. No, it's not. And I know that might not be the norm in the industry, but do find someone that is going to be honest with you about what their capabilities are, because it'll just make it easier down the road and cost you less money.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always lived by that. I've said this on the podcast a few times. I always live by, you only get out supply what you put in. And what you guys have both just described is giving the fulfillment company, they're a supplier, give them a clear brief. This is how many products we ship. This is what we're about.
Yep.
This is why customers come back to us. This is how our marketing works. We need you guys come back and pitch to us how you can meet all of these demands, or tell us if you're not right. But I guess a question for you guys then is, you mentioned that some are right, some are not right for you guys. What are your USPs? Where have you guys developed your offering for brands?
The offerings that we offer, we really want brands that are shipping, minimum around 500 orders a month. Not low SKU, but a reasonable amount of SKUs. It could be 100 or less, but it also could be a little bit higher depending on if it's an apparel brand, because we like apparel and it's really easy to work with. So that could go a little bit higher, but we are in the, everything barcoded. SKUs are fast moving, and we can ship as many orders as you possibly need. We're not really like in the cold storage or anything like that, but we do like brands that are in the supplement industry or in the apparel industry, anything like that. Really, we are wide ranging. We have a ton of different companies that we work with, but they all move a lot.
And they're fairly the smaller products.
And I guess another point, just to add to something you just said, is
we wouldn't be. And I was going to say, we wouldn't be the best fit for like couches or
Sorry,
TVs or anything. Yeah, we wouldn't be the best fit for couches or TVs or something huge and bulky. It's not, I think the one thing to keep in mind is what I was going back to when you're vetting these places. If someone does everything, they probably don't do one thing great. We kind of focus on a smaller product size to high volume in those sizes and SKUs, 100 to 500 SKUs or whatnot, like Max said. But we have a focus, and that's kind of one important aspect of the business is there is a focus. It's not just we'll do whatever whenever.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we're aligning with you.
Yeah, definitely. And so just to jump back quickly, something that you just mentioned as well about a specific requirement. I hadn't even thought about refrigeration, because obviously loads of products you buy, they come frozen, they come cooled. There are other products that like chocolate, for example, can't get too hot. So you need an air conditioned warehouse. So what you don't want is a non-air conditioned warehouse in Texas. Like,
Yeah,
that's a terrible idea. So I hadn't even thought about that in terms of actually just preserving the product.
Yeah, you need to think about. I just talked to someone the other week, and we were talking about it. You need to think about the
Yeah.
warehouse and the delivery. I mean, these trucks drive around in hot, Texas weather. They also needs to be delivered in a certain packaging and stuff like that. So you need to find a specific niche, like warehouse that's handling your product specifically, and they have done it. A place that has never done cold storage or anything is going to be a complicated thing for you to say, oh, I want them to do it, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. Now, to finish off, just to come in for the last sort of 5 or 10 minutes, let's talk about some of the more humorous parts then of what you guys do. You mentioned earlier about sleeping in the warehouse. Tell me more about that. What was going on? Was that purely a necessity? Was that because you guys were so busy? Like, what was happening in that period of life?
No, we left school and we purchased this warehouse, and our other business partner was living a couple miles away, and then Max and I lived we were living back home, and we were traveling like 45 to an hour, like an hour and a half or something to the warehouse every day. And we're like, why don't you give up your lease? We don't have to drive. We just kind of like move into the warehouse to save money, save costs, save time, and we build this thing and see where it goes. And we all were like, all right, that sounds like something we'll do. We don't have much else to do. We're trying to get this thing off the ground. And, it was interesting times. We showered at Planet Fitness. We ate, what did we have? Little Caesars was right next door. So we ate a lot of pizza, ate a lot of ramen, ate a lot of jerky because we had all this jerky. And, we moved, we each had sleeping quarters in the warehouse. And at one point we put in like a shower in behind like a hidden door in the warehouse. So it was just something that it's an interesting talking point, but we just thought that if we were going to do this, we might as well do it and try to maximize everything we could to get it done. And now we don't live in the warehouse because we've moved on from that, but it was a stepping stone in the right direction to where we needed to be, and dedicated to getting it done. So that's basically it.
A good stepping stone. We did it. We didn't do it because we really wanted to. We did it because we had to. But if you ask our other original business partner, we always joke about being able to roll out of our beds and be in the warehouse. We're like, oh, it's so easy to go to work. There was no commute. Some weeks you wouldn't, we would stay there for like 5 days and we'd go back home for a day or two. But sometimes we'd be like, yeah, we haven't even left the warehouse in 5 days. it'd be pretty funny. It'd be like living in your own little world. And it was interesting, but we always joke about it because it's really funny to talk about, and we enjoyed it. We enjoyed our time, but obviously getting past that was even better. That's something. I'm trying to think of anything else that we currently go through. We've done a lot of bulk shipping, a lot of just like insane amount of orders in an insane amount of times with just temp labor and just making sure everyone's doing the right job. And that's pretty crazy just to do 20,000 orders in a day and manage that. So that's pretty interesting stuff. It's very, very you have to have people watching over everything just to make sure everything goes right. But we were printing 20 to 30,000 orders, in a day and handing them off and having them fulfilled and with high accuracy. The biggest thing there is high accuracy, and it takes a lot of work. But those were also just as we're growing. That's like stuff that we did as we're growing. We do a lot of barcode scanning now. We barcode scan everything, and we make sure that everything is going out as accurately as possible. Once again, there are mistakes that happen in the warehouse. I mean, these are human beings. This isn't like, I know everyone thinks the Amazons of the world all have robots and they never make mistakes, but I've ordered a lot of off Amazon, and they still make
Yep.
mistakes. Like
Yeah, they
it's
do.
not impossible, and they actually do have robots in their warehouse, and they still make mistakes. So like making mistakes here and there is fine, but making them constantly, and there are horror stories about you know warehouses making mistakes constantly. We just try to make them, correct them as fast as possible and make it right. We usually go outward facing. We're gonna make it right. We're gonna get this order out the door. We'll get a return label out, and we'll make the customer happy, and then we'll fix it from there to make sure it doesn't happen again. We're all about the customer and your customer, just to make sure they're happy, because that's the biggest thing about business, is just making sure the customer is
And
happy.
I think one other thing to add to it,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
was gonna add one more thing was I think not funny, but something about doing your products and shipping them out of your own place is learning about barcodes and learning about SKUs. People I always think, oh, everyone knows about barcodes and SKUs, and then they end up putting the same SKU on 15 different products, and they're not the same. It's something that
Yep.
is they're like, oh, well, this is all XX, it's all different, but they all have the same SKU on it. Well, that's not how it works. SKU is like having your social security number.
Yep.
It's just you. It's just this one product, even if it's a different color, new SKU. And getting people to understand that, and then the barcodes going along with it. Those are two things I think that are I never think that people don't know, but that's something that's not common knowledge that you should be thinking about, or at least you'll learn about if you do it out of your own bedroom. You'll know that you need different SKUs on different products, and it's kind of why Amazon makes you buy theirs. That that you buy barcodes, you buy you get these things so that there get SKUs and FNSKUs and all this kind of stuff, because it's super important. You just can't give it to a warehouse with none of this stuff available, and it's really tough. So always interesting talking to people about that for the first time and
Yeah, yeah.
explaining it to them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think just jumping back to the stories as well, and SKUs relates to this. I think perfectly is in terms of scaling a problem. Imagine if you decide to do your first flash sale, you're putting tons of money behind it, and you don't tell your fulfillment partner. As we've just found out from you guys, you need the right partner who can do that, which goes back to an earlier question we were talking about of how do you find the right partner. So I think it all needs to tie in nicely, and I think certainly with marketeers, we get so bogged down with we just need the orders to go up. And we don't think that actually if they go up, there's a domino effect. We need to make sure everybody's ready for this. We've had clients in the past as well sort of say that, over Christmas, for example, we're going to have a Christmas cutoff at the 20th of December for Christmas, and we can't start fulfilling orders till the 10th of January. And we're like, what are we supposed to do for 20 or 30 days? Bearing in mind, your customers are all at home on Google with gift vouchers to spend. You can't just shut the warehouse down over Christmas.
Yeah.
So I think finding that right partner is probably one of the biggest messages I think everybody needs to take from today. Finding the right partner who can do fulfillment as you guys want to do it, so you can run your business the way you want to, and they will then, with that good communication, good relationship, they will follow suit and deliver on what you're trying
And
to
a good
achieve.
partner. I will say people have messed up barcodes. They've messed up SKUs. They've messed up tons of stuff when it comes into us. We fix it and figure out if it's the wrong barcode. We go out and say, we'll make something that works to get that stuff out the door, even though it's wrong. There are probably places that will throw it away or do something else. So you need someone who is going to also have your back when something like that becomes an issue from the manufacturer. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Super important.
Manufacturers make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. That's one thing. But you just gotta try to get it rectified and make it right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, so much in that, and I really appreciate your time, both of you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you guys. Really, really love doing this.
Yeah, we really appreciate you having us on.
Look, both at the same time. Lovely stuff.
So we always look forward to hearing from anyone that owns an e-commerce store that needs help with fulfillment.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And final point as well, you guys obviously called Ships a lot. What's the best way, if I come to you, Zach, just so we don't get both at the same time. Zach, how can people reach out to you? How can they find you online?
Really, if you have any questions about fulfillment, order fulfillment, Zach, Z-A-C-H, at shipsalot.com, SHIPSALOT.com is going to be your best way to contact me. And then Twitter, Zach Zitney, is probably my other avenue. But email, if you have any questions about fulfillment, that's where you'll find me.
Lovely stuff. Well, thank you both for your time, as I said. And really appreciate you joining us at podcast today. For everybody listening at home, we will be back again next week, next Friday. We're going to be joined by one of these guys as well. We're doing it slightly differently this month, which we're quite excited about. So stay tuned. And there's going to be some great episodes coming up. We're going to be talking to some merchants about fulfillment as well, and covering this topic in as much detail as possible. So thanks so much for tuning in today. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. We'll have you back again next week. And check out winningwithshopify.com, where you can submit some questions for me to ask for future guests on this topic as well. Thanks for tuning in. See you all again next week.